The bone tool in Adobe Animate allows you to create a puppet, rig it with a skeleton, and teach it how to move, the advantage being that you only have to draw your character once. Okay, I'm going to go to Adobe Animate. I'm going to X out of this. I don't need it. And I'm going to create a new file. Full HD, 24 frames per second, HTML5 canvas. I'm going to reduce my canvas to 50% so I can see most of the canvas. And I'm going to use my brush tool. And I'm going to real quick create the top jaw and head of a monster. Okay, now again, I do not want you to spend a long time drawing this. I want you to create it quickly. Shapes should be closed because you're going to be using the paint bucket tool to drop in various colors. So there we go. He doesn't really brush his teeth, so his teeth are a little gray. I'll use some white and a paintbrush to add a little bit of highlights to his teeth. I'm going to make this very quick and very cartoony, not real detailed. Okay, let me add in some black with a paint bucket inside of his ear and some, let's see, a real light pink inside here and maybe some white inside here, and done. Okay, so I've created the top jaw of my monster. I'm now going to select it, the whole thing, with the free select tool, and I'm going to bring it to the top of the screen. See this dot? I'm going to move it here so that when he moves, he's hinged on his top jaw instead of spinning. Okay, now I'm going to right click and I'm going to convert to symbol, make sure it's a movie clip symbol, and I'm going to call it top jaw. Okay. Now I can I'm going to now create the bottom jaw. So I'm going to move to my brush tool again with the black, and I'm going to draw the bottom jaw. Do not draw it too close to the top jaw. Okay, so there's his teeth, real quick. Do not spend a lot of time. There's the bottom jaw. I need to duplicate that color, so I just use the eyedropper. There we go. And now I need to duplicate the color of the teeth, so I'll get that gray, and I will use my bucket tool to fill in the teeth. And now I need some white to add a little bit of highlights to the teeth. There we go. Now I'm going to use my cursor. I'm going to drag it over my lower jaw, right click, convert to symbol, make sure it's a movie clip symbol, and call it lower jaw. Okay, good. And now I'm going to move this point so that it doesn't spin, but it can rotate where I want it to rotate, like the jaws opening and closing. And because it's a movie clip, it's not going to accidentally combine with the top jaw. It'll remain its own shape, and I'm going to move it up to the top jaw so they're together. Now I'm going to use my free transform tool to select both of them, and I'm going to move them over here. And I can also use the free transform tool to make them smaller. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to create my monster's body in another layer. Okay. But right now, I'm going to show you how to use the bone tool. So if you don't have the bone tool in your toolbar, you just have to go to these three dots, click on it, and it's edit toolbar. You'll find it in the menu. Just drag it over into your main toolbar menu. But I've already done that, so I'm going to click on my bone tool, and I'm going to connect the top jaw to the bottom jaw. And what's going to happen is now when I use my move tool, they stay together and I can make them open and close and rotate. And they are together as a unit. Okay? And it's now called Armature 1. Now, I'm going to rename Armature 1 head. And I'm going to add a new layer. So, this new layer is going to be the body. So the body is just going to be all one color. It has to be all one color. For this to work, it's just going to be one color. So I'm going to grab the same color as the head, and I will just make a real sneaky body. And I will fill it with a paint bucket. Now, if you do not turn it into a movie clip symbol, it has to be all one color. You cannot make it multiple colors. It won't work. So, but what I can do is I can use the eraser to make details, even though I can't use multiple colors. So I'm going to just add some scales here just for fun. Okay, so the reason why I needed this to all be one color is because when it's a movie clip symbol, Adobe Animate only allows you to put one bone in each movie clip symbol, but if it's a all one color and you don't change it into a movie clip symbol, you can add multiple bones, which gives you a lot more freedom of movement. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just clicking here, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go up. Here, I'm going to go down. Sometimes it's good to use the mouse. Click and drag, click and drag. Click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. So you can make as many nodes as you want if you don't convert it to a movie clip symbol. However, the downside is that it has to all be one color. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to rename it body. Okay, you can see it's an armature layer. And the lovely thing about it is that I can take this and I can do some really neat things with it. I've got a lot of flexibility as far as how I move it. Okay, so my next step is that I'm going to need to create the legs. So I need to add another layer, and I'm going to now use my brush tool, and I'm going to create the monster's leg. Okay. For some reason, I accidentally started using my mouse, so I will go back to my stylus. And there we go. Use the paint bucket tool. And because I am not going to be converting it into a graphic symbol, because I want to be able to put multiple bones into this one piece, I am going to have to keep it all one color, but I can use the eraser to add a few fun little scales. So now I'm going to grab my bone tool. I'm going to go from the shoulder to the elbow to the wrist, and the wrist to the hand. Okay, and that gives me, if I go to my selection tool, you can see this gives me tons of flexibility in terms of how to move my arm. Really terrific. Okay, so now I have to duplicate this layer. First of all, I'm going to rename it arm. I've got this armature 5, which I'm going to rename arm. That was weird. Arm. And now I'm going to take this armature layer and I'm going to duplicate it, and it'll be arm copy. So now you see I've got 2 arms. Terrific. Cool. Okay. So I can take the layers and I can move them where I need them to go. Okay, and here is my monster. If I wanted to make legs, I could, but you get the basic idea. I'm going to now reduce the whole thing to 25% so I can see the whole thing. And now you see that I've got this skeleton that enables me to move my characters around. Okay, and I have my characters, and now I've got my character, and now I need to start making him move. So here's how you do that. So you've got arm copy, body, head. You go to 1 second, and you have to hold down the command key if you're on a Mac, the control key if you're on a PC, and you're going to right click, and you're going to insert pose. Okay, you go to the I think I need to be a little bigger here. Okay, so you're going to go to the selection tool, and you can insert a pose. And you'll see when you look at the that you've just created a motion. So I'm going to now go here to 2 seconds. Again, you have to hold down the command key if you're on a Mac, control if you're on a PC, and then you're going to right click, insert pose. In order for this to work, you have to grab a node. There we go. So let's see. Nice. Okay. So now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to 3 seconds. It's Control on a PC, Command on a Mac, and you're going to insert another pose. And now at this point, you want to get it. You need the motion to loop. So you're going to need to get it back to whatever pose it was at the beginning. So I'm going to hide all the layers and I'm going to unhide them one by one. So I've got arm copy here and I want to see what position it was in at the beginning. And it was in the same position, very similar. I just have to angle it a little higher. I think it was there. Yep. Okay, perfect. So that one's done. Now I go to the next one. Okay. At the end, it's like this. At the beginning, it was like that. So I'm going to, you want the end and beginning to be the same. So now that I'm going to hide that one. Now let's unhide the body. At the beginning, it was stretched out like that. So let's do that. Let's stretch it out like it was at the beginning. It was sort of angled down at the beginning, so I'll angle it down. Good. That was at the beginning. It was a little more crinkled at the beginning. It's going to be a little painstaking. But what you don't want is there for me a big jump. So pretty good. Very close. Hide that. And then the head. At the beginning, its mouth was somewhat open. So we will open the mouth somewhat. At the end. Okay. So let's see how it looks. Let me just collapse this a little. I'll pull this out so we can loop the whole thing. And we're going to see how it looks when it loops. And you can see why it needs to have the same position at the end as it did at the beginning, because otherwise there would be this real big jump in the frame. It would look bad. So if you want to use multiple colors, such as the top jaw and the lower jaw, you have to change it into a movie clip symbol. But if you change it into a movie clip symbol, you're only allowed to have one bone per symbol. So that limits the movement. So if you're going to have multiple bones on a shape, then you don't convert it to a movie clip symbol. But in that case, the downside is that you can only use one color. You get more flexibility in terms of movements, but you only can use one color. And that is how you use the bone tool. And now, in order for this to look right, I'm going to let me just reduce it to 25% so I can see my entire stage. And now I need to add in one more layer. I'm going to add it to the bottom, very bottom. I need to pick a color I have not used yet. So I think I'll pick a pink. And I'm going to have to go to the very beginning of the movie and I have to create a background layer. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool and I'm going to make it go across the entire stage. And I have now a background layer that will last throughout the whole movie, which is only 3 seconds long. Okay, that's how you use the bone tool. I'm going to stop it. And now I'm going to do File, Save As, Bone Tool, Experiment with Monster. Okay, I'm going to hit Save. And now I'm going to do File, Export, Export Video. and it went into the media encoder, and now it's exported, and I should be able to see it in my downloads. And there it is. Bone tool experiment with monster. Just a 3-second video demonstrating that I do know and am familiar with the bone tool. And that is the assignment.